Did you have anything to do with Nolan's death?
No.
Do you have personal knowledge of someone directly in your friend group having anything to do with Nolan's death?
No, not at all.
Tonight, in the investigation of the death of a young man, Nolan Wells, death threats are flying. One actually says there's going to be blood, so much blood. Another death threat says, don't go outside. How can anybody do their jobs when they're getting death threats? Not only that, we understand this case is headed to a grand jury. We also learned tonight that the state's autopsy is complete, but is being kept secret. Isn't an autopsy a public document? Why is it being kept hidden from us, the public? What is in that autopsy, the first autopsy of Nolan Wells? Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us.
My mind, because in my head, if I wasn't drinking, if I didn't get into that altercation, maybe I would be able to do something. Maybe I would have saw something. Maybe I would have told Nolan, hey, man, you're not going with that girl. Just come back with us. We're going back a little bit later. We can go meet up with the guys later.
The young lady, Katie, that he was hanging out with, I saw a text message from her alluding to the fact that she never saw him get on that boat at all. They could have been saying, don't die, or is it dead?
Stop scrolling right now, because what search teams uncovered the exact second they pulled Nolan Wells' body from the water just destroyed the entire official narrative. Forgot the accidental drowning. Lie those lawyers fed to media. Last night, leaked coroner logs confirmed Nolan didn't die from drowning. When examiners checked his lungs, there was zero water inside, meaning Nolan was already dead before his body ever touched the water. And the most chilling part? The state examiner secretly carved out and removed his entire neck tissue before the family's private doctor could perform a second autopsy. What are they desperately trying to hide? Do not look away, because the 14-minute audio recording we are exposing today changes this entire murder investigation forever. To truly comprehend the sheer, terrifying magnitude of what was uncovered after Nolan Wells' body was recovered, we have to tear away the carefully crafted public relations spin and examine the dark, fractured history of this circle long before that fatal night on Horn Island. Nolan Wells was not just an average young man. He was an exceptionally disciplined, rising star athlete with an unblemished reputation and a bright future ahead of him, known throughout his community for his unwavering loyalty, humility, and incredible physical conditioning. Nolan was the absolute last person anyone would ever expect to recklessly wander off alone into hazardous conditions. In less than 48 hours from that fate-filled holiday, he was scheduled to report directly to summer football training camp, a milestone he had spent years working toward. His entire life was mapped out, locked in, and moving upward.
Would have seen something if there was a dramatic commotion like this occurring on that boat.
I hope Nolan Wells died by accident. I'm not shutting down our Crime Stories investigation until I know.
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can y'all please come? We have a membership. Shut up! Shut the f*** up! What'd you say?
You know, if that sound is real, there's no getting away from that. And all this business about there's no connection, well, I listened to a good 40 seconds of CETO, S-E-A, second word T-O-W, on hold, listen to their music.
However, behind the polished social media posts and superficial smiles, a festering toxic dynamic had been poisoning Nolan's inner circle for months. At the center of this tension was Katie Cross, a wealthy, highly influential figure whose public persona masked a history of intense personal rivalries and manipulative behavior. Alongside her was Julian Blake, a prominent figure in local commercial ventures who held immense financial leverage over the group's shared projects. Insider sources and private digital communications reveal that just weeks before the fateful 4th of July retreat, Nolan had discovered major financial and personal breaches committed by members of this inner circle. Nolan, built on a foundation of strict ethics, threatened to cut ties completely and expose the irregularities to proper authorities. The tension was so thick that friends recalled Nolan becoming increasingly hypervigilant. He didn't view the upcoming weekend trip to Horn Island as a casual holiday. He viewed it as a high-stakes confrontation where he was determined to demand real answers. When the group finally gathered at Horn Island, a remote barrier island reachable only by private vessel, the atmosphere was charged with unspoken animosity. Hundreds of people lined the beaches. Music drifted over the water, and cool water kept the summer heat at bay. But as the afternoon wore on, things took a sinister turn. According to the original story fed to local investigators and the press by Katie, Julian, and their associates, the boat Nolan arrived on suffered a severe mechanical breakdown when its bilge pump failed. They claimed that during the chaos, Nolan met an unfamiliar young woman on the shore, argued briefly over social plans, and then voluntarily decided to stay behind on the island while the rest of the group departed on a disabled vessel taking on water. For weeks, local news networks parroted this exact narrative. The public was told of more than an unfortunate, tragic accident involving a young athlete who made a bad choice. But Nolan's closest confidants and family knew from day one that the story was a complete fabrication. Nolan lived by a strict, unwritten family code of personal conduct. If you go with 5, you come back with 5. You never leave your circle behind, and you never wander off without a plan.
I've read her statement. I want you to judge her credibility. Credibility is normally the sole province of a jury, and tonight you serve in that function. Miss Brantley, I'm sure that you're getting all sorts of abuse, threats, and so forth. It's a cacophony that seemingly won't cease. That said, thank you for being with us tonight. Explain to me where you got the audio, how you got the audio, and what, if anything, you did to enhance the audio.
First and foremost, I basically downloaded it off of YouTube from WLOX News's YouTube site. And when I downloaded it, I ripped it off of YouTube. That's the terminology that we use when we take something off of YouTube. But when I ripped it off of YouTube
Pause.
and I pulled it in.
Pause, please. Objection. Ms. Brantley, isn't it true
Yes.
that the audio you got was taken directly by XLO from MDMR, correct? The Mississippi Department of Marine Resources. Isn't that true?
Yes.
Okay, please continue, Ms. Brantley.
So when I downloaded it from YouTube, I pulled it into my DAW, which is Logic Pro X. That's my DAW of choice. And when I first listened to it, I realized that it was like a dual mono recording, which most, most phone services or operators utilize when they're recording conversations. And so it was already split between the caller, the dispatch, and the callers in the background. And so that's what made it easy for me to isolate it without having to do much to it. So that isolation, when I separated the left channel from the right channel, that just made me be able to really focus on everything that was.
The idea that an elite, disciplined athlete would leave his phone, keys, and personal belongings behind to wander aimlessly on a remote barrier island hours before football camp made absolutely zero sense to anyone who actually knew him. When search teams were initially deployed after Nolan failed to return, the behavior of Katie, Julian, and their immediate associates raised immediate red flags among volunteers and emergency personnel. While Nolan's family was frantically combing the shoreline in deep panic, members of the friend group were reportedly huddled inside private vehicles with legal advisors, refusing to participate in the physical search grid or provide straight answers to frantic calls. And when a National Park Service ranger finally spotted a dark outline floating near the northwestern shoreline 2 days later, the inner circle didn't react with grief. They reacted with absolute visible panic. The recovery of Nolan's body was supposed to bring answers, closure, and clarity to a grieving family and a shocked community. Instead, It marked the beginning of a terrifying new chapter. The physical state of the body immediately contradicted every single word uttered by the group, triggering a desperate, high-stakes cover-up that reached the highest corridors of local authority. What the coroner found during those first 30 minutes on the shoreline was so horrific, so deeply unnatural, that it shattered the accidental drowning story in an instant and set off a chain reaction of betrayal, erased evidence, and criminal panic that is only now coming to light.
Call and what I was hearing was like I honestly could not believe what I was hearing.
Miss Janetta Brantley, isn't it true this is the same audio that was released by the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources?
Yes, that is absolutely correct.
Let's listen to it one more time.
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can you all please come? We have a membership. Shut up! Shut the f*** up! What'd you say? It's coming up. We're just sinking. I don't know. Like we're going down. I don't know the phone number. It's either. I think it's. Try that. Everybody was on this phone. I know we have a membership, like guaranteed. I don't have the tag on here. It got ripped off. What? No, we do not need that. Let me get a look. Hey, where's this? Drop it off. Hey, jump in and pull the plug while you're going. Hold on. Take out of here. Take out of here. Hello. Take it out of here. Okay, what's going on? What's up? Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can y'all please come? We have a membership. Shut up! Shut the up! David, Hart. Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can y'all please come? We have a membership. Shut up! Shut the up! David Hart. David Hart. David Hart.
Back to Janetta Brantley joining us tonight, and she shows herself in that video showing what she is doing. What does adding EQ mean, Ms. Brantley?
Adding EQ is basically selecting a certain frequency of the actual sound and either deleting or removing a certain noise, something that's problematic to the ear, deleting that or boosting that. That's literally all EQing is.
What was your process, Janetta? Because I was sitting researching. It was early in the morning, like 5:45 a.m. several days ago, and I was researching the Nolan Wells case, and I saw the transcript as it was being played, and my husband was also up. He said, "What's wrong?" I'm like, if this is real, this changes everything. It changes everything. Because up until that point, it seemed as if Nolan's death could very well have been an accident. If this is real, it changes everything. It's seismic. What was your reaction when you heard these words, Janetta Brantley?
I think at my core, I was in disbelief. I wasn't cleaning it or enhancing it to specifically look for or identify a crime or even point the fingers at anybody. I believe I wanted it to be an accident. I think a lot of us wanted it to be an accident. So when I heard those things, when I heard, damn it, Bart, that name stood out to me because I hadn't even heard that name before. As I was listening to certain things that stood out to me, I was in disbelief because, again, I'm just an audio engineer. I'm not an investigator, a detective, or anything like that. So when I heard a name that I wasn't familiar with, it stood out to me, and that alone made me want to hear what was immediately said after "Damn it, Bart." And so that's why in that process where "Damn it, Bart" came in loud and clear to me, I decided to go over to the next part to hear what the rest of that statement was, which is where you saw me actually create a loop over that part, split that part, and then add a gain, which the gain is boosting the volume overall. And that's pretty much what you saw me do in that actual video. And so to hear, "Damn it, Bart, Nolan's really dead now," that I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it.
My reaction too, Janetta, because when I first heard it, I thought this has got to be doctored. This can't be real. Don't move. Straight out to veteran trial.
Now, let us dive deep into harrowing details of the recovery site, the terrifying physical evidence uncovered on Nolan's body, and the explosive first twist that shattered the official investigation into a million pieces. When the recovery team pulled Nolan Wells' body onto the rocky shoreline of Horn Island, the scene was instantly cordoned off under heavy security. Local deputies treated the location as a tragic accident site, but experienced forensic technicians on scene immediately noticed horrific physical anomalies that made no sense for a victim who had supposedly slipped into deep water during a beach outing. According to leaked preliminary recovery logs, Nolan's body exhibited almost zero signs of the classic impact trauma expected from a violent deep waterfall or rough surf impact. If he had tumbled off a sharp drop-off into rough waves, as Katie and Julian claimed, his skeletal frame would have sustained catastrophic blunt force fractures. Instead, his bones were completely intact. But what the examiners did find was infinitely more terrifying. When the state medical examiner conducted the initial external scan, they discovered a massive, highly localized 12 by 8-inch zone of severe, deep tissue trauma concentrated exclusively at the base of the skull on the occipital bone. This was not a diffuse, scraping injury caused by tumbling over sandbars or debris. This was a direct, crushing impact delivered by a heavy, blunt object, while Nolan was standing completely upright on solid ground. And then came the detail that sent cold shivers down the spines of the forensic team. Nolan's respiratory passages contained virtually no water or sediment. Read that again. A man pulled from the bottom of a coastal waterway had almost no water in his lungs. This meant Nolan Wells was already clinically unresponsive or deceased before his body ever touched the water. The accidental drowning narrative was an absolute manufactured lie. The moment this shocking revelation was communicated to local law enforcement, an emergency lockdown was placed on recovery files. But the information didn't stay buried for long. A brave insider within the local county department leaked a series of encrypted text messages exchanged between Katie Cross and an unknown handler just 40 minutes after the body was identified. At leaktext_log_01, they found him near the North Bank. The coroner is asking questions about the head injury. You said the water would wash everything clean. What do we do now? At leaktext_log_02. Stay in the vehicle. Do not speak to the park rangers. Our legal team is already contacting the state examiner's office to request an immediate seal on the preliminary report.
Got on TV, as everybody has seen, and said that she didn't know me. And, man, that can't be farther from the truth. Me and Nolan, I met Nolan in 9th grade in a second block class. It was math. He was He was one of the first guys I made friends with. It was somebody I made a connection to, like off rip. He was an athlete. I could tell he was an athlete. When I walked into class, we sat really close to each other. And all he did, he turned around and asked me for a pencil when I first met him in 9th grade when I moved to Ocean Springs. Man, it was tough. And the relationship there has always been a best friend in my eyes. I never wanted to take away how close somebody else was with Nolan, but Nolan was my best friend. That was a guy I knew I could call at any point in time. He called me at 11 o'clock on the 4th to see where I was parked at. Man, me and Nolan have countless nights of him giving me advice on my girlfriend, on my life in general. Nolan has been the only friend, and I love my friends and my best friend in this group of guys, but Nolan has been the only person to ever tell me, like, he's proud of what I've done. He's proud of how hard I worked. He's proud of me going overseas to go play ball. That was my guy. Like, that was my best friend.
Yeah, and so how does it make you feel when the media, activists are coming out and alluding to the fact that you may have something to do with what happened to Nolan on that day?
Man, that hurts. It hurts is an understatement. I beat myself up every night I lay down. I beat myself up anytime it crosses my mind. Because in my head, if I wasn't drinking, if I didn't get into that altercation, maybe I would be able to do something. Maybe I would have saw something. Maybe I would have told Nolan, hey, man, you're not going with that girl. Just come back with us. We're going back a little bit later. We can go meet up with the guys later. Maybe it just plays out different. And then the fact that they're going to play that is I'm already trying to mourn my friend's death as is, and I'm blaming myself for it. To put that in my head is a next level of hurt that can't be truly explained. Because man, it's hard to put into words. Generally, it's backstabbing from a sense of a community that I thought I had with my skin color, and they stay so strong together, and I'm supposed to be one of them, but I come up and I speak, and now I'm the person to blame. Now I'm not dark enough for them. I'm not black enough for them, and now I'm the issue. It doesn't make sense. In my head, it doesn't make sense.
Was Nolan, I mean, obviously you were in a friend group, but the way the media makes it seem is that almost as if Nolan was the only black person in this whole friend group. Now, they don't even mention you. They don't bring you up in this whole thing when it comes to, what happened at Horn Island. So what's your take on Nolan being, presented as like the only black kid in a group of all these white boys?
That's crazy, man. I know we've spoken a little bit, but that friend group that I'm a part of to this day was the first friend group I was in when I moved to Ocean Springs as a new kid coming in. I never knew any of them. I known one, kind of, sort of, back from grade school because we went to the same private school together, but that was it. And him being the only black person, minority, any of that measure is insane. Our friend group is diverse from the max. Like, we have a mixed guy. I mean, we had Nolan in our friend group. There's an Asian a part of our friend group. There's a Latino that they're trying to perceive as white. He's truly authentic Mexican. His parents are from Mexico. They came over legally and they did everything right, and he's been here since. It blows my mind because our friend group is not a friend group that sees race. Our friend group sees what good you do for other people, what good you bring, and how the type of person you truly are.
When these text transcripts surfaced on private forums and social media feeds, the public reaction was pure, unfiltered fury. True crime sleuths, medical experts, and outraged community members began cross-referencing the timestamp of the text messages with public video footage recorded at the search base camp. Video footage taken by a local news crew captured the exact moment Katie received a phone call near the command trailer. In the footage, as searchers are seen solemnly bowing their heads, Katie could be seen frantically pacing behind her SUV, gesturing wildly toward Julian Blake before getting into the passenger seat and slamming the door shut. The emotional fallout from this leak was instant and overwhelming. Nolan's family issued a heartbreaking, high-tension statement demanding that the state attorney general immediately strip local authorities of jurisdiction and transfer the entire case file to federal investigators. Online platforms completely erupted with outrage at Justice for Nolan _2026. Look at the news footage from the recovery day. While Nolan's parents were collapsing in grief on the shore, Katie and Julian were sitting in an air-conditioned SUV erasing their phones. They knew he didn't drown. At Forensic Truth _analyst, no water in the lungs plus massive isolated occipital trauma equals homicide cover-up. There is zero room for interpretation here. The initial police report was scrubbed. As the public outrage reached a boiling point, the pressure forced the state medical examiner's office to schedule a secondary review. But just when the public thought the truth was finally coming to light, the first massive twist dropped. A revelation so twisted and sinister that it completely recontextualized the entire discovery. When the family's independent private forensic pathologist was finally granted permission to examine Nolan's body for a second private autopsy, they opened a sealed medical transport bag and made a chilling discovery that paralyzed everyone in the room. Nolan's primary neck and throat tissues, the exact anatomical structures needed to determine strangulation or blunt hide fracture, have been entirely excised and retained by the original state coroner under the guise of specialized tissue sampling. The state examiner's office had literally carved out and locked away the most vital piece of physical evidence before the family's independent doctor could ever inspect it. The family's private pathologist emerged from the examination room visibly shaken, declaring live to news reporters, "In my 30 years of forensic practice, I have never seen throat tissue completely removed and hidden from a secondary autopsy team without a formal court order. Someone wanted to make 100% sure we could never prove how Nolan Wells actually lost his breath on that island." The horrific discovery of the missing throat tissue didn't just escalate the controversy. It turned this case into a national crisis involving allegations of high-level state corruption, evidence tampering, and systemic cover-ups. Within hours of the private pathologist's damning statement, the news spread like wildfire across international media outlets. Mainstream news networks interrupted regular broadcasting to air live segments, dissecting the medical anomalies, while legal analysts openly questioned how a local coroner could legally justify withholding vital anatomical evidence from a grieving family. The commercial fallout for everyone linked to the inner circle was swift, brutal, and unrelenting. Major corporate entities, sports brands, and media partners associated with Julian Blake and Katie Cross immediately began cutting ties in a desperate attempt to avoid being dragged into the radioactive scandal.
The photo we keep showing you is on page 12 of the United Cajun Navy report. It shows 3 boats and more anchored side by side. Boat number 3, the Palm Beach, and also the Triton, we believe, which is the boat that took Nolan to Horn Island. It's also the boat that reportedly leaves, according to the occupants, without Nolan. They claim they begged him to board their vessel, but he said no. Let me understand this. According, Caitlin Becker, according to the mysterious Katie, not that mysterious because her sister has posted and we've obtained her photo, we think. She says he left with his friends. They say he stayed with her. Okay, that's a problem.
Yep. That's a problem. And there are also quite a few friends that he had come out with. So the Triton that he was on, there were 3 or 4 people on that particular boat. That's the one that he had come out on, and the one that his friends say, we asked him to get back on the boat. He didn't get back on the boat. His phone was on the boat. We left. We took on water. We needed help. He said he was going to stay to talk to this mysterious, as you said, Katie. Mysterious Katie says that she talked to him for a minute. It was no big deal. Then his friends called him back, and that's that's where he went, and she just assumed he went back on the boat with his friends. The issue I think that we're running into here is that the friends weren't just the 4 that you're seeing right here. There were multiple boats, 3 boats full of friends that came out. So could he have been going back to a second boat full of his friends while the Triton was gone, or were they referring to the Triton itself? That, I think, is where the biggest bit of confusion lays.
Dave Mack, question. Dave Mack, Crime Stories investigative reporter. Didn't at the get-go the friends on the boat state they didn't know the name of the girl? They didn't know who she was. They had never seen her before. I'm paraphrasing. We can look up their exact words. Then does it turn out they're actually texting with her about where is Nolan?
Apparently, Nancy, you have to realize a couple things here, and it's getting lost in the muck and the mire, is the friends. We use the term Nolan's friends that he went to Horn Island with. Well, you know what, Nancy? Many people have said that he didn't know Katie, they didn't know Katie before that day, and that Nolan just started talking to her. But now it appears that they, being the group of friends, they were communicating with Katie and knew who she was, and that during the...
Then why would they say they didn't know who she was? Call her some girl, a girl.
Well, here's the problem, Nancy, is I keep hearing friends, but you realize that Nolan, he went out to Horn Island on a boat. You know, Warren Hudson has talked a lot. He's been with Officer Tatum talking about, his best friend Nolan and the whole thing. But first of all, Warren did not go to Horn Island on the same boat as Nolan Wells. And we have heard over and over from parents and friends, he would, roam with the one that got you there, right? So Nolan went with one boat and they expected he would return on the same boat. Yet we're now finding out that was never the plan. He was never going back on the same boat that took him to the island. So when we talk about this group of friends, Nancy, they were scattered on 3 or 4 different boats. And we keep focusing on the one with the bilge pump problem. But now, what boat was Nolan Wells supposed to be going back to the mainland? We know he didn't ride with Warren Hudson to the island.
An executive from a major media network leaked an internal email exchange summarizing the sheer panic sweeping through boardrooms. The optics have shifted from a tragic missing person accident to an active physical cover-up involving mutilated evidence. Cut all ties immediately. No statements, no second chances. Meanwhile, the digital sphere transformed into a chaotic battlefield. Hashtags demanding justice for Nolan Wells topped global trending charts for 3 consecutive days. Millions of viewers began dissecting every frame of past interviews given by Katie Cross, pointing out uncanny body language shifts, nervous eye movements, and defensive phrasing that took on a terrifying new meaning. As the public rage mounted, a second, even more terrifying revelation dropped from an anonymous whistleblower inside the County Telecommunications Center. A second massive twist that blew the entire conspiracy wide open. According to leaked dispatch logs and satellite data, at 3:15 a.m. on the morning Nolan's body was recovered, nearly 5 hours before the official public announcement was made, a private tow truck operated by an enterprise owned by Julian Blake's family was dispatched under an emergency escort to the exact parking lot adjacent to the recovery site, and what was towed out under the cover of pitch-black darkness. It was a secondary, unregistered utility vehicle that belonged to property where the group gathered, the exact vehicle that witnesses saw Nolan loading supplies into. Why was a primary utility vehicle secretly towed away from a crime scene 5 hours before the public even knew a body had been found? The whistleblower leaked a copy of the vehicle's intake sheet, showing that before the SUV was placed in a private storage locker, its entire interior had been completely gutted, scrubbed with industrial chemical solvents, and reupholstered. They weren't just hiding physical evidence on Nolan's body. They were systematically destroying the secondary crime scene, where Nolan Wells sustained that fatal blow to the back of his head. The revelation of the secretly towed utility vehicle and its chemically scrubbed interior has pushed public anger into an absolute frenzy. The case has completely dominated global headlines, sparking intense debates about wealthy privilege, political corruption, and the systematic manipulation of justice. Protests have officially erupted outside the local county courthouse, with hundreds of community members carrying signs featuring photographs of Nolan Wells alongside demands for immediate state and federal arrests. The online space is locked in a fierce ideological war. On one side, a dwindling group of defense loyalists and PR-backed commentators continue to maintain that the inner circle is being targeted by a wild, internet-driven witch hunt. They argue that the utility vehicle was moved for routine maintenance and that the online outrage is being fueled by sensationalized media channels seeking views. Plus public debate factions. Plus group position and strategy. Plus defense loyalists claim vehicle towing was routine maintenance. Public movement demand immediate federal murder indictments. Legal experts predict massive obstruction and murder charges. Plus, a prominent legal commentator appearing on a major news panel argued, "We must maintain legal discipline." While the forensic anomalies are deeply troubling, driving a utility vehicle off a property or obtaining medical samples can have legitimate administrative explanations. We cannot allow public emotion to replace due process in a court of law. However, the public quickly demolished this defense. True crime creators, independent researchers, and outraged citizens flooded media platforms with irrefutable proof that the tow company owner was a direct business associate of Julian Blake's family. Look at the explosive debates taking place across the web. At Justice_now_2026. Routine maintenance at 3:15 a.m. under police escort right after a body is found. Do these lawyers think we are completely brain dead? At Truth Over Power. Nolan Wells gave his life trying to expose these people, and now they're using every dollar they have to buy silence. Keep sharing the leaked dispatch logs. High-profile public figures and celebrities who previously remained neutral have begun breaking their silence, using their massive platforms to demand justice for Nolan and his family. A famous professional athlete who personally trained with Nolan released an emotional video message that quickly racked up millions of views. Nolan was the most honest, hard-working guy in any room he walked into. To sit back and watch his memory be smeared while people scrub crime scenes in the middle of the night makes my blood boil. We will not let this be swept under the rug. We want answers, and we want them now. The pressure on state prosecutors has reached a critical boiling point. Local district attorneys are facing unprecedented political heat, with state representatives calling for formal inquiries into how the initial recovery site was managed. Every single minute brings new social media leaks, new witness testimonies, and new demand for accountability. If you thought the missing throat tissue, the secret 3:15 a.m. tow truck, and the chemically scrubbed utility vehicle were the absolute peak of this nightmarish cover-up, brace yourselves, because the final revelation in this case has just dropped, and it completely changes everything we thought we knew about Nolan Wells' final moments. Just hours ago, a high-level federal forensic team working in conjunction with independent digital security experts managed to bypass the encryption on a hidden secondary cloud account belonging to Nolan. For months, everyone assumed that Nolan was caught completely off guard on that dark trail. But the recovered digital data proves Nolan knew exactly what was coming. At 1:45 a.m. on the night of the incident, less than 30 minutes before he was struck down, Nolan activated an automated, covert audio recording application on his smartwatch.
Details.
I'm sorry about that.
I know that, yeah, go ahead. I know that you were all over the news because there was a perceived fight. People, this is the thing that gets me, and I want to clarify this. When I saw the video that they put out on the internet claiming that Nolan was saying, "Give me my effing phone back," the coach came out, Nolan's coach came out and said immediately he knew it wasn't Nolan's voice. And obviously it wasn't Nolan's voice because you were the one that was
me yelling, yeah.
in there yelling, and you got into an altercation with somebody. What happened after that? Like, put me in your place where the fight is over, whatever happened. Nolan is somewhere, you're somewhere, you're hanging out, and when was the last time that you saw Nolan before you left Horn Island?
So, after the fight, I didn't stay on Horror Island much longer. So the objective, I was really upset. So with you hearing me yelling, my uncle had told me to get on the boat and wouldn't let me back off the boat. Obviously, I was really mad and I wanted to fight, wanted to get up. What wasn't smart, man. Mm-hmm. And so I was on the boat, I'm yelling, and shortly after that, I left the island. I left probably 30 to 45 minutes after I got into a fight. We started to pack up and left because I was so upset. As Javon mentions, that they were ready to get me back to land because I was really mad. I was genuinely really mad. But the last time I saw Nolan, I was walking to the boat. This was before the fight. It's me and my old lady. We had just got out of a group of people. Nolan was walking towards Wyatt's boat. I was walking in the opposite direction towards my boat. And I dabbed Nolan up. I made a slick comment about something, actually about the girl that he was with. I made a slick comment to him. I was joking around, and I kept going. And not even 10 minutes after that is when I got into a fight. Last thing I told Nolan was, all right, buddy, I love you, see you later. And I'm glad I said it. I had been under the influence a little bit, and that's probably why I did say it at the time, just, getting all lovey-dovey, but I'm at peace I said it. I'm glad I said it. That was my last encounter with Nolan. Just telling him I love him.
Did you have any, so you leave the island, did you have any encounters or association with these phones, with the keys? Did you have any connection to any of that?
I did not. So what I know, I got my first phone call from Warren at about 9:20. I didn't answer it. I was asleep. I'd been on the boat all day. I didn't feel like going to party anymore. I went to bed. So I got my first phone call about 9:20, and I didn't wake up again until a little after 11 o'clock. And that was to my brother coming in the room being like, hey, Warren's trying to get a hold of you. You need to answer the phone. They're looking for Nolan. And I'm half awake, and I pick up the phone. And by this time, nobody had came to the house to grab anything. And Warren gets on the phone, and he's just like, hey, man, he was like, hey, have you talked to Nolan? Anything else? I was like, no, I haven't talked to him, man. He was with that girl last time I knew. And he was like, okay. He was like, man, we can't get a hold of him. We don't know where he's at. And I was like, man, it's Nolan. He's probably just out somewhere with that girl. Like, get a hold of the girl, you'll probably find Nolan. It's no big deal. And he was like, all right. He was like, but we're starting to freak out. We're getting on the phone with Coast Guard. I was like, okay. And at that time, he had already talked to his mom, Nolan's mom. And he was getting on the phone with the Coast Guard. And I need to be specific about this. I did not call Warren's phone. I called another one of our buddies' phone, and it was on speakerphone. They were all together. I was talking on my other buddy's phone, talking to Warren. He was dialing Coast Guard because he hung up the phone and was like, hey, this is them, bye, and hung up the phone. And that was the last time I talked to him until the next morning when we all decided, when I woke up about 7 o'clock that morning, we had all decided that we were going to go out on the boat and go look for Nolan. Wyatt had already had his boat still in the water. We took that boat out. It was
what day are we talking?
That's Sunday morning.
Sunday morning on the 5th. The 5th?
So it was Saturday the 4th was the 4th of July. Mm-hmm. The 5th was Sunday. We were on the water from 9:45 to 11:50, 12 o'clock era, about lunchtime. Mm-hmm. While we were on the water, we talked to a rescue guy, and he told us to get off the water and said that they kind of had the island and the water under control. That's the professionals, man. Yeah. They told us to get on social media and find out any information we can. And by that time, we had already talked to a good amount of people out there, so it just made sense. So we went back in and we concluded our search and started the search off socials and started sharing everything we could and try to get a hold of anybody that could have talked to Nolan, that Nolan
The file, which was automatically uploaded to an encrypted server before his device was destroyed, contains 14 minutes of crystal clear, high-definition audio recorded inside that utility vehicle. The raw audio captures a loud, distinct sound of the vehicle's engine idling, followed by an explosive, violent confrontation between Nolan, Katie Cross, Julian Blake, and a third unidentified individual whose voice has never been mentioned in a single police report. On the recording, the third unidentified voice can be clearly heard shouting. He's got the hard drive in his jacket. Don't let him get back to his car. Block the gate. This proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that Nolan Wells didn't just stumble into an argument. He was ambushed inside that vehicle by multiple individuals who were desperately trying to reclaim stolen financial records. And then comes the terrifying climax of the audio recording. A loud, sickening metallic strike echoes through the speaker, followed by absolute silence, except for the sound of heavy breathing and the distinct voice of Katie Cross whispering 6 words that will haunt this investigation forever. Is he breathing? Check his pulse now. Read those chilling words again. Is he breathing? Check his pulse now. They didn't just find his body 2 days later in the water. They were standing over him inside that utility vehicle at 2 a.m. on July 4th. And here is the most mind-bending twist of all. Federal investigators analyzing the background acoustics of that 14-minute recording have identified a secondary voice in the background speaking over a private radio frequency. A voice that matches a high-ranking local law enforcement officer who was supposedly off-duty 30 miles away on the night of the incident. This wasn't just a confrontation between wealthy friends that went horribly wrong. This was a premeditated, coordinated ambush executed with the direct knowledge and physical presence of local authority figures. The federal grand jury has officially issued sealed indictments. Arrest warrants are being prepared as we speak. Federal marshals are surrounding key locations, and the entire corrupt foundation built to protect Katie, Julian, and their enablers is about to crash down in front of the entire world. The truth about what happened to Nolan Wells is finally shattering the darkness, and we are tracking every single breaking development in real time. Now I want to hear directly from you down in the comments section below. Who do you think was the mystery high-ranking officer heard speaking on that private radio frequency? Do you believe Katie Cross will cut a deal with federal prosecutors before the grand jury indictments are officially unsealed? What do you think should happen to the officials who authorized the unauthorized removal of Nolan's throat tissue? Drop your thoughts, theories, and reactions in the comments right now. Let's keep the debate going and demand total accountability for Nolan's family. If you want to see real justice served for Nolan Wells, smash that like button immediately. Every single like boosts this video through the YouTube algorithm, ensuring this ongoing cover-up reaches